August the 17th, 2023. Guys, it is 9:21 a.m. Central Time here in Central Mississippi. The temperature outside is 76 degrees. It feels like 82. We have our third day in a row of much milder temperatures, but today is going to be a little warmer than yesterday, guys, and then it's going to slowly build back up. And if you look at your local weather forecast and the ones you can extend out for 2 or 3 weeks or a month, say like AccuWeather, if you do it here in Central Mississippi, you'll see that we're going to warm back up, and there's going to be a couple of days where we're looking at 105, 106, 107 actual temperature, so you know that your heat indices in real feel are going to be much higher than that. But I noticed as I scanned out, and it's not that accurate, no weather is accurate precisely when you get a month out, but it does look like if we can make it another 3 weeks here in the southeast, we're going to start to see some cooler temperatures around the middle of September. So just hang in there and keep your heads up, because when we start getting back in those type of temperatures, it's miserable. You can't do anything outside, and you can't leave your pets out there. And I always say a prayer to our Father and say, Father, please keep the lights on, keep the electricity going through this heat wave, because you know, if you're single or you're a couple with a couple kids, you can always get a hotel room and somewhere outside of the down power lines, or the blown breakers in this case, or burned up substations that we've seen. But when you've got a lot of animals, you can't do that, so you got to figure out a way. And we have a solar panel system. It doesn't do everything, but it's got us through sometimes. We couldn't run anything 220 on it. Well, actually, it's switchable to where you can do 220 or 110, but you can't do both at the same time. But one thing that to think about, guys, is this. A lot of people have window units. A lot of people have central units. Some people have both, just like I do. But if you've got it doesn't take a large generator, like a gas or a propane generator, to run a window unit and your TV, a few things like that. You got to remember all your safety rules and regulations as far as exhaust, and not putting it up under your carport and things like that. You want it to where those fumes don't get into your house from the gasoline engine on your compressors. But that is something to think about, that and fans. Now, also, I was reading something that I wasn't aware of, but it was interesting to me. They're saying that after 104 degrees, a fan can make it worse on you because it's blowing warm air, hot air, and dehydrating you even more. So keep that in mind too. You know, a shade tree may be better than sitting inside very hot under a warm fan. Now, there are people, and the ancient Chinese did this. They would bring blocks of ice from way up in North China and have it transported down to some of the warmer areas during the summer in these blocks. And then they had people there, they had a lot of servants in the castles and the palaces that would turn this fan, a hand fan that blew these large fins across the top of that ice. I saw that last night. But that's something to think about, and we see it all the time on commercials and things like that. But an ice cooler full of ice, and you can, instead of buying the ice, you could freeze milk jugs and things like that, guys, any kind of plastic bottle, and use that as ice. But fill up the cooler or the bucket or whatever you got and let the fan blow across that. Because what I'm seeing here, guys, is with the temperatures going up, and that could be some of the hottest actual temperatures at 107 that we've seen here in Central Mississippi. I've seen 105, but then the heat index on top of that got up to 132 one day. And so be prepared. There's nothing like being trapped in that. And to top it all off, if you look at the center of this map, guys, you can see that there's a lot of smoke building back up and moving down through the central part of the nation. And that when it's hot and stifling, the smoke makes it a lot worse, it seems like to me, because we've seen it here. It's been all the way into the Gulf of Mexico, but it's getting very thick. It's coming down out of let's see, that would be Alberta, and to the left, British Columbia, and then Vancouver Island, there's fires. But we're going to zoom in on that area. But there's something in the very central part that's not very visible at this image right here, and this is kind of getting in front of a lot of the smoke. And I'm going to bring that up in a couple of different filters and zoom it up. But people have been talking since this wildfire season has started, especially in Canada, about different smells in the smoke, and like plastic burning and things like that. And it makes you wonder what is possibly being ejected into the atmosphere ahead of these systems, and then it can be blamed and covered up with these smoke streams that you're looking at. But now again, coming down right there's the tip of it, and it's going to continue to move south. Also, this is going to be one of the factors, this front that the smoke's caught up in, and how these hurricane systems or tropical systems react as they get closer to the Gulf of Mexico. Now, while we're here, look in the bottom right of the screen, and you can see the clouds there. If you remember a video or two ago, I talked about they were watching for a system possibly moving across southern Florida and into the Gulf of Mexico. And I think this is what they were predicting, guys, right down here, because it's holding together. It's moving pretty much west, just slightly northwest, because the high pressure system is still here. That's not supposed to give back or move back north until the middle of next week. We looked at that in the video. Some of that will change. But guys, in the Bahamas, Cuba, keep an eye on this system. Just for right now, wind and rain, it may be much needed. And again, this channel, one thing that we do here is hurricanes. We've watched them, and because I've been involved in them since 1965. I don't know if any of you guys, a lot of you probably aren't that old. Some of you are, but there was a hurricane that was really tough on New Orleans called Betsy, I believe it was, in 65. We lived out in Buras, Louisiana at that time, and went to school there. I was in the 4th grade. But we had to evacuate because Buras is right on the Mississippi River. I mean, behind the high school is a levee as high as I think it was a 2 or 3 story building at that time. It was called Buras High. I think it's something else now, but there was a levee higher than that on the Mississippi River. So the river, all of that land is lower than the levees. And you could see sometimes the big battleships that would come up towards New Orleans. And we were, I think, 80 miles south of there, not far from where the opening of the Mississippi River was into the Mississippi Sound. But those battleships would come up through there. I'm saying this, maybe some of you folks there remember it. And they would wash waves over those big levees that would come down like a tidal wave and almost get into the schoolyard at the bottom. But it was a beautiful country. The river down there seems like it was a mile wide. It was getting so wide, getting into the delta areas where it again goes out into the Gulf of Mexico. Let's take a closer look at the central part of the nation. Now I'm going to bring it in this close, and then we're also going to look at a different filter. But guys, what are we dealing with here? Kansas, Missouri, and notice the trails here right on top of where this smoke was happening, or is happening, and most of it occurred before the sun rose. And so it would be hard to spot exactly what was going on during the night. But what are they putting here? Notice the rest of the nation. You've got airplanes all over the skies, right? Look at some of the air traffic sites that you can look at, and you'll see there's thousands of planes up. But look at this right here. Now I'm going to bring it up a little closer and put a filter on it where you can see exactly what I'm concerned about. Now this is the micro physics channel. I haven't zoomed it up in yet, but I will. This area here is the wildfire smoke. This is the very tip of the wildfire smoke, and this is the trails that we're seeing right there. Look at that, crisscrossing, isolated to this area. And it always goes back to your comments from the beginning of it smells different than wood smoke. Now, we don't know what it is. We may never know. But there's things that's happened in the last 3 years with you know what, and a lot of immune systems have been affected. And I've seen a lot of things getting blamed on causes other than why the immune system is. More and more certain diseases that wouldn't normally be popping up, guys, under normal situations, but that's been compromised. But check that out, and I'm going to bring it up just a little closer, and then we're going to go to the tropics. And here, it's a lot closer, guys. It's more of a sub-regional section of the satellite imaging. And this is what you're seeing in the thumbnail of this video. Again, we may never know what is exactly happening here, but it happened at night. It happened under the cover of smoke. And the demons are loose. There's things that are going on, guys, that are unbelievable right here in this nation. Demonic worship. You know, we have a lot of cloud cover here. You've got Oregon, Washington State, Canada, which is British Columbia, and then Vancouver Island here. And there's fires in all of these locations. Look right here, guys. All of it's feeding into this band, and look how thick it is up here. So again, there's still a fire here in the central part of Vancouver Island, right there. We saw that yesterday, but look how the smoke is concentrated. There's a huge fire coming. What is this, guys? Right here, Utah. Oh no, excuse me, Idaho, right here. I think that's what it is. You guys from there, correct me if I'm wrong. But there's a lot of smoke coming from all of this area. You've been under a heat wave, and 47 or 48% of these fires, when they first started in Canada, were reported on their website, where you can track the fires and things, and you have a percentage of lightning strikes. 48% were caused by man, human beings, either by mistakes, burning during a burn ban, or intentional. But this is getting very concentrated. They're spraying out in front of it, God knows what. And there's fires popping up all along these ranges, all along this area here. Again, right here in Vancouver Island. That's what we're dealing with. Let's go to the tropics. Now, this is the latest update, which was 8 a.m. Eastern Time. It will be updated more throughout the day as we get closer to the peak of hurricane season. You'll see more and more updates. But right now, this is from 8 a.m. And you've got both of these storms to the right now have a 60% chance of development. This section of the Gulf of Mexico now has a 30% chance of development. We'll start there. It says a broad area of low pressure could form in the central or western Gulf of Mexico by the beginning of next week. Some slow development of the system is possible thereafter as it moves westward and approaches the western Gulf of Mexico coastline by the middle of next week. Remember, we were looking at the video yesterday, and that's about the time that the high pressure system is going to back out of the south, move back up into the Atlantic, and allow northward movement on anything that comes into the Gulf itself. Back here, 60% chance of cyclone formation in 7 days. Central tropical Atlantic, this is called AL99. We may be starting to get some spaghetti models. We'll check that. I'm just going through it with you. It says disorganized showers and thunderstorms continue in association with an elongated trough of low pressure centered over 900 miles west-southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. Environmental conditions appear conducive for gradual development of this system. A tropical depression could form during the next several days while it moves west-northwestward at 10 to 15 miles an hour across the central tropical Atlantic. Again, when they start turning up like this, guys, you've watched them just like I have, unless that high-pressure system really builds in strong and forces them into the east coast, they will turn up. We'll just have to keep an eye on it. But here, in this area is where I was pointing out those clouds in that semi-tropical system moving towards South Florida. And we'll look at the models, but there's starting to be storms that are developing in the Caribbean itself also. Both of these storms pretty much based same information. It's going to be more conducive as it moves forward in the next 7 days. This one is moving at 10 miles an hour. This one's moving a little faster. How will that react with the Saharan sand layer? We'll have to see. Now, this is the wide Atlantic view. That's what they call this. It's one of the NOAA satellites. And the two storms that we're watching in the Atlantic, guys, are here and here. Now this system right here is what they've been kind of keeping an eye on and mentioning, that it would move into the Gulf of Mexico through this area. And that could develop into something that might move into Mexico or Texas. And then the models are showing Caribbean activity picking up and headed in that same direction. Play this through. Now, this one in the rear, both now are at 60% chance, but it had more tropical characteristics for the last few days than the ones in front of it. But what can happen, two storms get this close together and they can start feeding off of one another, and one can actually drain a lot of energy off the other one. And I think that's why we've been seeing the percentage fluctuate between these two systems, going from one would be 20, one would be 30, one would be 50, one would be 40, because of that close proximity to doing that. And they can reach out a long way. Remember the hurricane that came in? Now, this is the Canadian model, and what you're seeing are three storms in the Atlantic. We've got the two that starts off with. It looks like the second one is pulled into possibly the first storm. That's what we're talking about. Notice there's two now that we just looked at. Third one's coming off of Africa. Now the center storm seems to dissipate. And again, when they get that close together, that's what happens. They're headed north. Look at what's off the east coast, off of New York, in that area. Developing low pressure setting in there, and low pressure in the green is what we're looking at right now. You're opening up for that, but coming off the east coast, you've got one system there, and then look at what's in the Gulf of Mexico. Notice also the system that I'm watching that's supposed to come through Florida. Right there. Now it's going into Texas. Check this out. It was going into Mexico yesterday. Now, after that happens, that's the first thing that happens. We watch this. Now, pay attention as the Gulf goes into green, low pressure, which is right there. It goes into southern Texas. So we're starting to see more of a northerly drift because the high pressure is moving north. I mentioned that yesterday. In the last frame, look at how large this system is now in the Gulf of Mexico that's developing in the Caribbean. Check it out. I'll stop it on the last frame. Right there. That is August 27th. Now, the first one that now is looks like it's going into South Texas will be a few days earlier than that. I'll back it up just so we can kind of take a look at it. Let's come back. Notice low pressure has taken over the Gulf as we watch this occur. Coming back right there, offshore. That's the 22nd. What is that, Tuesday, guys? You got a system setting right here, and that's due to what we're watching back here now. Now, since we've seen it already turning from Mexico into Texas, that could change. It doesn't look like it's going to be a strong system. It may be moving too fast to sit there and develop. But the further this orange area moves this way, which is going to bring a lot more heat to the northeast, the further north this will turn, and the further north, the one that's going to be sitting here coming out of the Caribbean, will turn north. And that one, again, is a very large storm right here. And you've got Hurricane Hillary, that it was yesterday a tropical storm. That may come up and through the Gulf of California for you guys in Arizona, California, Nevada, and may bring some moisture and some cooler winds to your area. So that may be a benefit in itself. And any of this rain, especially if this just stays into a tropical depression, will be very beneficial. We need that. We need the cooling temperatures. But things are heated up, guys. We're watching this. You watch it. Keep your eye on wardnews247.gr. There's massive buildup of troops in Poland, across that area. Things are about to get very hot. It's a heads up. Be safe.